my worthy opponents, my colleagues, and supporters, good afternoon. My colleague and I have been tasked with the responsibility to convince you as to why it is necessary for Dominica to sacrifice some of its forests in order for her and us to develop substantially. In my presentation, I shall define keywords or terms within the topic. I shall present specific developmental undertakings which will demand the sacrificing of some of our forests and the end benefit of such a sacrifice. My colleague will later ask questions which we hope will evoke serious thought and reconsideration, as well as to emphasize how future generations will be impacted by a decision either to or not to sacrifice some of our forests, if Dominica is to realize substantial development. Madam Moderator, the Collins Caribbean Dictionary, Student's Dictionary, defines forest as a large wooded area with thick growth of trees and plants. For the purpose of this debate, I would like to highlight the part of this definition which says "and plants." I shall expound on this momentarily. Development is defined as to grow or to bring a large, more elaborate or more advanced stage. Sacrificing means to surrender something of value in order to gain something more desirable to prevent some evil. Substantially means of considerable size or level or degree. Madam Moderator, I wish to define the term sustainable development. For the purpose of bringing responsible in our quest, of being responsible in our quest of sacrificing in order to develop substantially. Sustainable development suggests development in a responsible manner so that as not to completely bring a resource to extinction. It demands usage of a resource in such a manner that this very resource continues to exist for future generations. My colleague will later sum up her presentation by highlighting the effecting of this concept, but against the list of definitions, I would like everyone to pause for just a moment and envisage Dominica in the next 10 years. What realistic image of Dominica did you see? Madam Moderator, my colleague and I will attempt to present verbally the image of Dominica, which most of us present must have envisaged. Dominica is blessed with lush verdant forest, and she is indeed the envy of many other Caribbean countries and of the globe by extension. I wish to make reference to the very social studies text, the social studies for CSEC examination, which indicates that Dominica, with an area of about 750 square miles, is about 60% forested, and considering its more forested counterparts like Guyana and Belize, 60% represents a significant amount. And as much as we may wish to remain conservative, in order, reality demands that some has to be sacrificed in order for us to achieve the modern and future levels of agricultural, industrial, and other developments. These developments demand the clearing of some forests and to sacrifice the clearing of some forests to facilitate adequate space to introduce modern practices and the application of mechanization, automation, mass production, robotism, etc. Larger areas must be created for such advents, which ultimately will result in greater efficiency, productivity, mass production, higher levels and quantities of export that are diverse, higher levels of employment, and increased GDP. Madam Moderator, as the saying goes, development comes at a cost. I need not to go into explain here. Earlier, we saw that forests include plants. Thus, this definition suggests that our traditional concept of what constitutes a forest needs to change to consider the valuable tree properly planned and executed programs of agronomy. Such plans can serve the same purpose of windbreaks during storms by providing us with fruits, etc. Madam Moderator, fallen trees in responsible and sustainable ways can be used to construct houses that are obviously cooler, and their designs can serve as attractions to visitors, again generating income. My colleague will later expound on the other reasons and benefits, both current and futuristic. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
It was Mahatma Gandhi who said, and I quote, "What we are doing to the forests of the world is but a mirror reflection of what we are doing to ourselves and to one another." Moderator, honorable judges, my colleague, esteemed audience, worthy opponents, a very pleasant afternoon. I rise for the opposition of the moot. Dominica needs to sacrifice some of its forest in order to develop substantially. Dominica sacrificing its forest is not a necessary evil, and my colleague and I will prove that such a sacrifice is an unwise decision. However, before exploring arguments to support our position, I'll begin by defining the key terms. Need, as defined by the Britannica Dictionary, means a situation in which someone or something must do or have something. The Cambridge Online Dictionary defines sacrifice as to give up something of great value. The Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary defines some as being an unknown, undetermined, unspecified unit or thing. Britannica defines a forest as a complex ecological system wherein trees are the dominant life form. Reversal Dictionary defines develop substantially as to grow and become more advanced to a significant extent. Therefore, the moot can be restated as Dominica is in a situation where we must give up a previously undetermined, unspecified amount of our complex ecological systems wherein trees are the dominant life form to grow and become more advanced to a significant extent. Do we honestly believe that Dominica needs to give up some of this complex ecological system that is our forest for us to develop? The answer is a resounding no. In our position, my colleague and I will expound on the following. 1. Economic growth can be achieved to a larger degree through the exploration of other sustainable economic activities. 2. The results of sacrificing our forests will lead to similar consequences faced by our sister nation of Haiti. 3. The forest is Dominica's signature tourism map across the Caribbean and the world, offering unique features and opportunities for economic growth. 4. Sacrificing our forests may bring some economic growth for the present. However, for long-term sustainability, this sacrifice will only result in climatic and economic doom. And 5. Our topography does not lend itself to being manipulated, and this will only lead to dire human and natural consequences. Madam Moderator, my colleague and I strongly believe that economic growth and by extension, substantial development of our island can be better achieved through the exploration of other sustainable economic activities. Rather than sacrificing our forests, we should use the forest as an economic resource to generate revenue and create job opportunities. Let us remember, the world we are living in is rapidly depleting as climate change caused by deforestation is resulting in dire consequences. And we know of it personally. Just remember Hurricane Maria and Tropical Storm Erica. We suggest the establishment of a green economy where we can maximize the use of our forests, whilst at the same time preserving it for the future and benefits that it will bring. How do we do so? Let's take instruction from the country of Costa Rica. The Tourism Review News in 2019 revealed that ecotourism in Costa Rica generated $1.4 billion a year to the country's GDP. Almost 52% of tourists entering the country visited a national forest park or biological reserve, this being one of the main attractions of Costa Rica. This created a wide range of career opportunities from forest managers to tour guides. The Affluent Responsible Travel Organization also confirmed, and I quote, around 3 million tourists visit Costa Rica each year. drawn by the promise of the abundant wildlife of its forests. Costa Rica has become a pioneer in ecotourism that Dominica should pattern from to reap the full benefits of our forests. Secondly, I hasten to state that the results of sacrificing our forests will lead to similar consequences faced by our sister nation of Haiti. The situation in Haiti proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that sacrificing some of our forests will make us vulnerable to the ill effects of deforestation and its associated negative consequences. Haiti was once an island similar to Dominica, full of lush trees and swarming with wildlife. However, today this island is completely deforested. This island is nearly completely deforested and undergoing a mass extinction event. In 2018, the U.S. Embassy in Haiti reported, and I quote, "Without enough trees, Haitian families, particularly farming families, will be at greater risk of poverty and hunger." According to the International Union for the Conservation of Nature 2021, nearly 28 species of plants and 83 species of animals are in danger of extinction in Haiti. The main reason is deforestation, as they have sacrificed their forests in hopes of developing. Haiti offers a heartbreaking illustration of the devastating consequences of narrowly valuing forests for only the commodities they provide, while ignoring the wealth of environmental services and protection forests offer. The sacrificing of Haiti's forests has placed it amongst the world's poorest nations. My opponents, is this the future that we envision for Dominica? Moreover, the country Haiti began where we are now, with the same question of sacrificing some of its forests. The word "some" here is ambiguous and does not specify a percentage or amount. Some may be needed for one project today, and then some more for another project tomorrow. And by the end of the decade, that some will turn to all. Similarly, in countries such as Borneo and the Democratic Republic of Congo, in the name of development, some of their very diverse forests were cleared. The results included the loss of farming lands for indigenous people and the trampling of human rights. As of recent, a petition document titled DRC, released the palm oil protesters jailed in Mwindi, revealed how villagers who were protesting for their land, which was illegally snatched by the government and private businesses for the use of development projects, were beaten, abused, and arrested in their plea against using their ancestral lands to increase palm oil plantations. Madam Moderator, can you imagine being beaten or jailed because some of their forested lands form part of a development project? Members of the audience, can you imagine the loss of habitat in Borneo continues to affect species such as the indigenous orangutan, Borneo elephant, and Sumatran tiger? They are being pushed to the brink of extinction. Is that what we want for our Cicero parrots? To be pushed to extinction as some of our forests are sacrificed? If we look at our neighbor Jamaica, a vast amount of forested land was cleared for the bauxite industry. Unfortunately, whilst bauxite has been the star income earner for decades, the ugly underbelly of this coin includes extensive deforestation and environmental degradation. According to Vice News 2021, Jamaica has exhausted its primary reserves of bauxite, and now the government seeks to move mining operations to one of the most ecologically sensitive parts of the island. Imagine the massive environmental degradation that will occur as some and some more of their forest is sacrificed for development. My worthy opponents, when will these some forests which are being sacrificed in our sister island be enough? By all means necessary, this must be avoided in our nature isle. My esteemed audience, this would sadly suggest that Dominica is an island of no substance. My next point adequately demonstrates why I beg to differ that some of our forests does not need sacrificing. Time and time again, Dominica has been recognized for her unique features, and it's clear that she still got it. Do any of you know where was recently named Best Destination to Unwind in Lonely Planet's Travel Magazine's 2023? Well, I can tell you, Dominica. And where was listed on the top 5 destinations by the renowned pub magazines? Dominica. My esteemed audience, Does this sound like an island that lacks substance? Honorable judges, my esteemed audience, I would like you to ponder on this. Sacrificing some of our forests seems simple, but we will be sacrificing much more than that. My worthy opponents have attempted to persuade you that sacrificing forests is mandatory. However, my colleague and I strongly disagree, as the consequences of sacrificing some of our forests greatly outweigh benefits. Therefore, we remain affirmative that Dominica must not give up any unspecified amount of its forest on the altar of substantial development. I thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Moderator, judges, my colleague, supporters, my worthy opponents, and the members of the audience. Madam Moderator, in my deliberation, I wish to highlight some of the development aspects which necessitates the sacrifice of some of our forests, as well as to present measures to mitigate against the negative impact while we experience substantial development. Madam Moderator, tourism has quickly taken over our traditional dependence on coconut, citrus, green gold, bananas as our economic activity in Dominica. This tourism industry has presented itself as a timely replacement to buffer the impact of the end of preferential treatment to enjoy on the low. My opponents are well aware of the demands of tourism industry and thus the sacrifice which governments in the region must, and I stress must, make if we are to adequately and successfully compete. Dominica cannot continue to promote itself only as a niche market for ecotourism in the primarily interested in elements and features of nature. Madam Moderator, we must attract more than just cruise passengers. If we are to encourage diversity in the passengers who wish to consider Dominica as a destination, then we have to put our great emphasis into air travel and in modern and futuristic times. Madam Moderator. We cannot be talking about the volume and numbers brought in by traditional aircraft like Liat, etc. And international airports is needed if we are to enjoy the full benefits of the lucrative industry. Madam Moderator, my opponents, I cannot see us constructing this infrastructure on the sea or in the air. A few acres of forest must be sacrificed. And as my colleague mentioned earlier, development does have its cost. The onus is on us to minimize the environmental impact of such developmental ventures. I wish to add another saying, thus, we cannot eat our cake and have it, and per adventure, my opponents may wish to interpret this differently. I dare remind them that it is only the small portion of cake eaten which we won't have. Through sustainability, much will be kept convinced. Through legislature, Dominica has key forest reserve, namely the Northern Forest Reserve and the Central Forest Reserve, which house many of our natural features to include lakes and waterfalls. So calm your fears, my worthy opponents. Modern hotels for accommodation must be developed and constructed. These two demand certain averages. Thus, further sacrifices, Madam Moderator, the effects include modern infrastructure development, financial gain through linkages, increased employment, and increased GDP. Madam Moderator, we wish to encourage development with the sacrifices needed. We further encourage responsibility and prudent supervision and monitoring. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Members of the audience, good afternoon. Albert Einstein said, I quote, "If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life thinking that it is stupid." End quote.
That is, until you ask that fish to swim. Madam Moderator, we are the fish, and development the tree. Who gets to decide when we have developed? What defines substantial development for us? And who says that for us to develop substantially, we have to sacrifice our forests? As developing countries, we continually aim to follow in the footsteps of larger countries. We allow them to ask us to climb trees, when in fact we are great swimmers. Madam Moderator, let's take China for example. China is classified as a developed country, one that has subscribed to the idea that being developed entails massive industrialization, building of concrete jungles, and sadly, deforestation. The result? They have become the world's biggest polluters. Their water and air, two essential fluids on which life depends, have become garbage cans. This can be traced back to the massive deforestation during the Great Leap Forward, as stated by South China on Land Use 2030. The developed countries have equated development with deforestation, and this is what we ought to avoid. My esteemed colleague has brilliantly presented all the sustainable options for development. However, I will further persuade you by presenting some arguments which expose the dangers of what our opponents suggest. Chiefly, our forests may bring some economic growth for the present. However, for long-term sustainability, this sacrifice will only result in a climatic and economic doom. The link between deforestation and climate change has widely been published by numerous scientific researchers for the past decades. As such, on a global level, countries are encouraged to conserve their forests to reduce carbon footprints, not sacrifice them for development. Dominica and our sister nations have suffered from the ravages of intensified storms because developing nations have sacrificed their forests for development and ultimately exposed us to the damaging effects of climate change. Moreover, esteemed audience, please be aware that after sacrificing some of our forests, the cost of combating the effects of climate change will skyrocket our expenditure and place our nation in great debt. Honorable judges, we know the important role that the forest plays in the protection of our water sources. So if we were to sacrifice some of our forests, then obviously we would not be able to play a future role in securing the survival of the nation and its people. It is widely predicted that Dominica, in the near future, will be one of the main suppliers of fresh water in the Caribbean. Would you prefer to risk our forests for development that will not be long-lasting, or conserve it, knowing the role it will play in the survival of humanity? We are not looking at mere current development, but we are looking beyond to sustainable activities that will benefit generations to come. Secondly, it is paramount that you understand the fact that our topography does not lend itself to being manipulated, and this will lead to dire human and natural consequences. Our unique topography is such that the mountains and the heart of our forests are located in the interior of the island. Consequently, a large number of the population has settled in the coastal areas. This is so due to the difficulties that would be faced by workers if they ever decided to develop land for businesses, buildings, or any infrastructure such as roads and bridges. It is both dangerous and highly costly to procure machinery to get the job done. Hence, the cost and the risk of utilizing some of our forests greatly outweigh any potential economic benefits. Billions of dollars will have to be injected into such projects, only to destroy what is natural. Moreover, the removal of trees on these steep mountains will lead to an increase in rock falls landslides and mud flows, as there will not be enough trees to keep the soil compact or anchored together. This heightens the risk of people being injured, succumbing to their death, losing their property, and loss of earnings when their farms are destroyed. Dominicans witnessed the devastation done by heavy rainfall to the east in November 2022. Did our worthy opponents consider that sacrificing some of our forests meant changing our landform and endangering the lives of our people? Is this the nation we have become? Sacrificing the precious lives and livelihood of our people for development that may be uncertain? Honorable judges, as a people who have high morals and ethical standards, there is absolutely no way we can agree to endanger the lives of our people for any type of development. My worthy opponents, tell me why. Why do we have to go against the very foundation on which Dominica was built? Scripted in our motto are the words which I invite you to reflect on. Après body, c'est la terre. After God, it is the earth. We acknowledge the value of the earth and the forest. So why, I lament, should we sacrifice a valuable resource that forms part of who we are? As I close, my esteemed audience and honorable judges, I would like to ask you, do we really believe that Dominica must give up an unspecified amount of its complex ecological systems, wherein trees are the dominant life, to grow and become more advanced to a significant extent? I think we have all agreed against it. The opposition rests momentarily.
But proper zoning and designation of reserves would ensure preservation of species. Bear in mind also, my opponents, ourselves need to build our homes one day with land. More and more scarce the land is getting. I would also like to mention, my opponents mentioned that we are filling the forest with concrete buildings. Yes, we are filling the forest with concrete buildings, but maintaining balance with hotels, schools, etc. are being constructed within or in harmony with the forest. For example, Jungle Bay or our community high school. Thank you.
Madam Moderator, honorable adjudicators, my esteemed audience, our worthy opponents have failed to convince us that Dominica must sacrifice its forests to develop significantly. Allow me to weed out the fallacies they've dressed up in my opponent's debate. Mark Twain had this advice to give: get your facts first, then you can distort them as you please. My opponents focus on the construction of an international airport, but this is a baseless argument. Have they done their research thoroughly? If they did, they would know the 400 acres of land are needed to construct the airport. Furthermore, it is estimated to construct the airport, Dominica will have to spend over $220 million, tremendously increasing the country's debt on the backs of our struggling nation. It is heartbreaking that the opposition suggests that some and not all of our forests will be sacrificed. However, we would like to ask them a question. Do you really understand the meaning of sacrifice? My opponents, when you sacrifice something, you lose something that is valuable. Moreover, honorable judges, the projects that the opponents refer to are mere infrastructural. Finally, as an ecotourism product, Dominica is better positioned to take advantage of the economic returns that this project can heal versus any project that warrants the destruction of our forests and natural terrain. Is this the future that you want for yourselves? A land full of destruction, nowhere to live, loss of habitat, loss of life? We want to remind our opponents that in this changing world, what we need to focus on is how we can marry nature with development. Though you may have been misled, my esteemed audience, even for the slightest moment, I trust that you are wise enough to understand that the reality portrayed by the word some is ambiguous. You have now been enlightened, and I believe that you have minds of your own, that in the presence of irrefutable facts, that you have been persuaded that Dominica does not need to sacrifice some of its forests in order to develop substantially.
I really want to commend the DSC Literary and Debating Society for bringing back secondary school debates. I took part in secondary school debates myself. I remember I was a very shy secondary school student, and my teacher kind of forced me into that, and it made me a better public speaker and more confident, more brave, and that really helps you along your careers. I also want to commend both teams from all 4 students for taking part in this venture, taking part in this debating exercise. And I'm sure after this exercise you have learned a lot, you've gained some skills in research, in presentation, public presentation, that you will have and you will develop for the rest of your life.
So now is the results time. I'd like to first start with the best speaker for today. So with 284 points, the best speaker for today is the first speaker on the opposing team of Okay, so congrats to you for that. Okay, so I'm going to say the points now. The proposing team, that's the Dominica Community High School, got 355 points, and the opposing team from the Isaiah Thomas Secondary School got 685 points. Congratulations once again, and thanks for your participation today. So we'd like to welcome Akila Baron from Isaiah Thomas Secondary School.